We're going to take a moment to look at how a gifted child approaches emotions and feelings. The level of affection is not in the least bit related to a level of intelligence. Instead, it's more related to the personality type of the child. When we look at their sensitivities and how they're intense, we want to see that sometimes there are varying degrees of these. The intensity affects not only what the child is like at home, but how they appear to others. Empathy is something that many adults notice early about the gifted children, and this sensitivity seems to increase with intellectual level. Parents are really often unsure whether to shield their child from experiences that will worry or sadden them, or to use the occasions as opportunities for conversation and growth. Some intellectual children are so sensitive to sights, sounds, temperatures, and even feelings. Their reactions to the environment are quite different from those that are most typical intelligent level. Some parents even take them to a healthcare specialist to find out whether or not something may be wrong. And it's interesting also that allergies or an incidence of allergies seems to be higher and very common among gifted children. When we look at their compassion and their fairness, they really have a high degree of idealism and also a high reasoning ability. This really gives them a concern early in life for fairness and justice and what is right. They're very strongly offended by any injustice, whether it's toward themselves or others. And then they have an advantage of really an excellent sense of reasoning, fair play, and confidence. They tend to notice and care about others around them, and this is sometimes called actually emotional giftedness. They have an innate altruism in many levels of gifted students, and especially as the child is more gifted, they seem to be a little more altruistic. As we look at their asynchronous development, this is really more about how their intellectual development, their maturity, does not match their abilities. This really means that the child is taking in information that is highly above their level. So they may not be physically, emotionally, or even experientially able to process this information. An example of this is a small child who understands their ABCs and is able to spell them out by using manipulatives, maybe a piece of yarn or a string. However, if given a pencil, they would not be able to write their ABCs because their fine motor skills are not developed well enough in order to be able to handle that. Looking at their sense of humor, it tends to be a characteristic of gifted children, although it's really not universal. Remember, because they are highly intellectual, many times their sense of humor tends to be over the top of the head of the children with the same age. And the children of the same age simply don't understand this child's humor, but the adult will. So it makes sense that a gifted child is going to really be drawn to a more appreciative, adult-centered audience. When looking at all of these emotions and feelings, remember that affection is really dependent more upon personality type, sensitivities. The gifted child is more sensitive to their environment, to emotions, and to things that are going on around them. They have an incredible idea of what is fair and what is not fair, and they need to make sure that the life around them is just. Their developmental level in their emotional and their physical side never quite matches up with their intellectual side, and they also tend to have a highly developed sense of humor.